Good afternoon, everyone. I am so excited to be here with my pal himself. Learn.blainebartlett.com/LMM. You never know what you're going to get with the mastermind himself, the great mentor, Blaine Bartlett. Welcome back, my friend. How are you?
Good to be here. I am doing absolutely wonderful. Yeah, it's been a great week so far.
It sure has. It's been a great month this week, as I always say, and just enjoying all types of activities. But
yeah,
we're
we've got
blessed.
office hours going on Apple TV. I just want to drop that plug in real quick. We got tomorrow. We got new episodes launching or dropping.
Yes, it's always nice that you remind me of the TV show that we have because I always forget about it. It's a significant thing, but I'm really excited because you've heard of the dog whisperer, the horse whisperer. Those excite me to a certain degree, but to have per Sjöfors here, the price whisperer. Now we're talking about something that's significantly for a man who's married with 3 daughters. I'm telling you, can change your entire existence. And he's created a holistic approach to pricing power and understanding pricing. Strategy consultant for pricing, founder of his own firm, CEO as well. Let's start with the word price, which, if I'm not mistaken, comes from the Latin term precium, which is a differentiator today. And I think it probably is somehow relative to the idea of being a price whisperer. The word precium not only means price, but it means value. And somewhere along the lines, this value-based definition has maybe dissipated or in some places even dissolved. How much is value incorporated in being a price whisperer?
Well, first, let me just say I'm happy to be on the show, David. And value and price obviously are tremendously related. Unfortunately, that is an unknown fact by almost all companies. And what that leads to is simply leaving money on the table. And there are a slew of different pricing methods that most companies use, or if actually there's just a few of them, and they all have one thing in common, and that is that they leave money on the table.
Yeah, Per, I doubt if you remember this, but the first time I met you was at Ken Rutkowski. We were at a metal gathering in L.A.
Yeah.
And David, you just spoke there last week, I think. I've spoken a couple of times as well. But you were relating a story about Netflix's pricing. This goes back a couple of years.
And this is probably 5 years ago, yeah.
Yeah, and I was just absolutely gobsmacked by the amount of money that you were talking about, in terms of the band structure. Just for the edification of our audience, I think that's a great little case study, and I don't want to go back in time if you've got something more current, but that for me just kind of went, whoa, that's an insight.
Yeah, I can give you some. Let me give you 3 case studies, okay?
Please.
The first one is a company that we helped in, I think, April and early May. We took them from about $15 million to $35 million in 6 weeks. Right. The second is something we did a little earlier this year. In February, we took a company from annual revenues of 200 million to 250 million in 3 weeks. And the third case study is I published a book. It was actually, the Kindle version was published on Tuesday. It's already an Amazon bestseller, and it's called The Price Whisper. Subtitle, A Holistic Approach to Pricing Power. And in preparation for that book, I reached out to some old customers, or prior customers, I should say, and sent them a review copy and asked them, please say something nice. And I got back, 24, people with saying nice things. But Jim and Eric, who at the time were CEO and chairman of a company called Sounds Unlimited. He said, well, Per, you helped us grow from about 100 million to way over 1 billion. Thank you very much.
That's it.
That's it.
Now, the two previous examples that you cited real quickly here, I mean, that was a very short time frame.
Yeah.
And there was no new products introduced. It was just purely adjusting. Purely pricing.
They left money on the table, and we told them, adjust your pricing so you don't.
Yep.
And to that, I have been coached by Blaine. Even I remember when I first started my executive coaching career, and Blaine was mentoring. His first comment was charge more, and it was amazing how quickly I made more money when I charged more. And he said, "You're leaving money on the table," and it was a matter of confidence, of perception, or perceived value. And so, how do you help your customers that you're consulting with feel confident in the perceived value? Everybody knows their bottom line, or they should, by the way. I shouldn't say everyone does, but bottom line's math to me. But so many people in so many different industries and careers and businesses, they cannot get a handle around perceived value. And how do you help with that confidence? Because I'm sure when you tell someone to raise their price, there's a little bit resistance and insecurity when they come back at you.
Well, in fact, it's not always about raising price. It's about adjusting price to match that perceived value. And the process, just to give you a little bit of the backstory here, I ran companies in Europe and here once I moved here to the States in the mid-90s, and we did pricing experiments. Some of those worked very well. Others were complete duds. And what I learned in business school and could read about pricing was so academic that it was useless. So when I decided I was too old and too opinionated to be a hired gun, I set up my own service and I developed a process that would make every pricing experiment a success. And that process consists of doing willingness to pay research. So we go out in a company's marketplace and we poll their potential customers, and through a series of questions, we can understand what they are willing to pay, with really the relationship between value and price, right? And once you know that relationship, setting the right price is pretty easy. But there's more to this. There's something called price walls. These are psychological price points where a small price change generates a very significant change in sales volume and revenue. And if you price just on the wrong side of one of those, it could well be that you lower your price with $3 and your sales volume doubles, right? Or maybe increases with 25%. So it's not only about always increasing prices, it's about right pricing. But then much of the value in what we deliver is that we are able to segment those predictions of sales volume and revenue, so we can identify the customer profile that will lead to the highest revenue. We can identify the product features and functions that leads to the highest revenue, the marketing channels and marketing messages and sales methodologies and sales channels that leads to the highest sales and revenue. And then, of course, how to construct a pricing strategy that minimize friction and maximize, again, revenue and profit.
So smart.
Yeah. Now, I'm assuming, in these price walls, with my business, I've got, and David's, this is true for him as well. But it's pretty international. I've got clients in Asia. I've got clients in Germany, Europe, Africa, as well as here in North America. The price walls, I'm making an assumption here, are going to be very different in these different demographic and geopolitical areas.
Oh, yes.
So same product, different price strategies.
Yes, absolutely.
Is there a dilution of value that occurs, or a dilution of perceived value that occurs in one or another market if people in these markets start comparing prices?
The the perception of value is all created by the decision landscape. And the decision landscape is everything that influences a buyer to make a buying decision or not. And the decision landscape consists of all various external influencers, and a whole slew of internal influences that are called heuristics. And so the external ones is anything from the marketing messages, from the competitive landscape, from even how your logo works and how your name of the product or service works, and all that stuff have influence on the buying decision. Heuristics is what you remember from what people have said, your earlier experience with the company and its competitors, and simply just gut feel, you know.
And Per, one of the things that's more prevalent today than the yesteryears is community, and I think a lot of times we don't understand the value of our community when we start pricing things, and the longevity and the intimacy and relationship caused by digital relationship, especially in brands that even a company or a personal brand can't quite fathom today, the size, scope, and scale of the reach, or the intimacy in the relationship. And I always call this the Housewives of Beverly Hills approach to things. That when I'm around some of these online characters, they don't understand why people can come up to them and say, "Oh my God, Susie, how's it?" As if they've lived with them and known them for 10 years, but they have. And this happens online with the product as well, that people have built a relationship that I think a lot of companies aren't aware of. How are you, creating a value to that community relationship that exists today with brands that didn't exist before?
Well, first of all, we have to consider that a brand is simply a promise of a certain quality and benefit, nothing else, right? And that's why major brands are working so hard on brand building as opposed to product sales, right, or product promotions. And it's that promise that a brand should never ever try to cross. Once you lost the trust of your I mean, if we're talking way back when, New Coke, what or whatever that was a disaster, and so that's an example, obviously, on how somebody screwed up its community, right? But how they could have done such a mistake is unfathomable. I don't understand it, but it's that trust in a brand that gives brands pricing power. This is the reason why your Ajax can be more expensive than a brand store brand's cleaning solution. Because people trust it. They know, and in our decision making, our fear of making a mistake is more than twice as important influencer to our decision than the expected benefit we expect from our purchase. So, which is another reason why brands are so important, and that community, that belonging to a community is really important.
Well, the stuff that you're doing is so important, and there's no wonder why you wrote a book called The Price Whisperer.
Yes.
And the insight and wisdom can make an extraordinary difference, not of just a few dollars, but hundreds of millions of dollars. So everyone out there, whether you're a small, middle, or large business or brand, it's a must read. Talk about quantitative value. I imagine you're charging about $100 a book for the value that you're providing. But if it's less than that, you got to make sure you're buying it. The Price Whisperer is available everywhere. Check out Per. He is amazing. Per Sjöfors, thank you so much for joining us on Office Hours.
Thank you so much.
Per, it's great to see you again.
Amazing.
Likewise. Bye-bye.
I'm gonna that's first on my read list, Blaine.
Yeah, it's mine too. I'm just keying it up in the Amazon.
If that's just at the surface, if that's at the surface of what we can learn, and it's not just in the pricing, it's in the understanding of all that's involved in price, like just the wisdom of the branding side, right? It had nothing to do with pricing. It's this relationship of experience and what brands do. I can imagine how many layers this book contains that we can really benefit, not just ourselves, but many of the brands that we're working with.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I'll tell you, and he didn't touch on the Netflix example, but yeah, when I first heard that 5 years ago, when I first met him, it was kind of like, whoa. I mean,
yeah, well, I mean, look, crazy, right? Like even the fact that when I said, "Oh, this must be about raising prices," and he said, "No, dummy, David, you can lower the price $3 and get 3 times the amount of business, and you'll have more profit."
Yeah.
Do the math, bozo. And I just love the fact that ignorant humility, especially when I read experts in their field, can really make exponential difference in what we do. And I just thank him so much for coming on. Anyway, we got waiting in the room in the wings here. The dynamic. Oh,
Dave,
what's the matter, Matt?
Real quick, you got something covering your webcam right in front of here, like right in front.
Yeah, that's to hide my face.
Oh, okay. Just wanted to point it out to you. Thank you.
Yeah, I got that arm for training tomorrow. All right, there we go. Is that better, Matt? There we go. Delivering. We're delivering. Carl, is Meredith coming on as well?
She should be, I believe. Yes. Nice to see
Matt, are
you.
you gonna let Meredith in? Carl Orsbourn, welcome with Meredith Sandland, the co-authors, and I like someone who puts their book right there. I got to start doing that with mine. Co-authors of Delivering the Digital Restaurant. Now, believe it or not, you guys, I have been working in this space for a while. In fact, one of my first coaching clients is the digital hospitality guru, Sean Waltek. And he people thought I was insane taking him on as a coaching client because he has a small barbecue place in a small place in southern San Diego. And I told them, look, I'm going to build, if I can build a brand for myself, I'm going to build a brand for this guy. And now he's working with the biggest distributors. He's working with the biggest companies. So let's talk about what is, first of all, a digital restaurant.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for having us on. And honestly, I think talking about Sean is a great way to start. He's a really good example of a digital restaurant. So that is a perfect way to begin and a segue into what we talk about in the book. But I'll let Carl tell more.
Sure. We love Sean. He's been someone we've been working with ourselves, David. So great to know that you know him as well. And thanks for having us on the show. We wrote a book about digital restaurants because restaurants have been going through enormous levels of change over these last few years in particular, enormous levels of challenge. Obviously, everyone knows about the inflationary challenges, the labor challenges. As a business model, it's been under threat for quite a while. Meredith and I wrote this book really to help restaurants look upon digitization with more optimism and hope and positivity. And, we get asked the question a lot, you wrote this book, Delivering the Digital Restaurant. Why, what is that? What is a digital restaurant? And we say it's about being wherever your customer is, wherever your customer is. And I think that is really what digitization is opening up for restaurants today. They've all been very used to having a certain amount of capacity, a certain amount of tables, a certain amount of turn time of those tables. And now with digitization and the rise of off-premise, which, in the US is 20-30% of the overall sales mix of most restaurants, even in these post-pandemic times, that is a huge part of their business. And it really is something that requires a level of adjustment, not only in terms of how they digitize themselves and how they market themselves, but through their entire operation. And so we wrote a book to help everyone get it, to understand why they should be excited about it, to see why this is something that they should be excited for the future, because we are in the early innings of change. And actually, when you look to further fields like China, when you look to India, and you look to other markets that are more mature, you can actually see that a lot of the things that make it quite difficult right now are actually things that will be eradicated over time as things become more It's something that we see more proliferate across everything.
How are you differentiating the digital restaurant from what many people, I would assume, think of as simply takeout?
Well, for us, off-premise is categorized as anything which is like any takeaway, drive-through, delivery. So it's all in that space.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And something like drive-through or takeout have been around forever, right? And even in what I will call the original ghost kitchens, pizza and Chinese food, they've had delivery for a long time. But now all restaurants have access to deliver their food to consumers. Consumers expect, because they've been trained by other verticals, to be able to order digitally, which even in, pizza or Chinese, they'd probably be calling, right? Yeah. Or getting takeout, you'd probably be calling maybe 5 years ago. But now everyone's using their phone, placing an order, whether they're placing on DoorDash, Uber, or via a restaurant's own website. Consumers expect to be able to have that digital interface, and they expect to be able to get the food whenever and however they want it.
And including in the delivering of the digital restaurant, I imagine it includes actually eating in and the interaction of the way that we order, the way that we pay our bill. There's a variety of things that increase the experience, the efficiencies within the context of a standard traditional restaurant. I remember the first time, I used Toast, or something like it in Europe. And then, even more now, it was amazing where Toast has gone with the QR code. And, that they don't even need to bring the machine to me. I was just literally, and I was thinking, wow, even within the context of a traditional restaurant, there's going to be more and more digital restaurants, meaning that you're there. It's not necessarily Grubhub and Uber Eats. It's a big change within the context of how a regular restaurant operates.
Absolutely. That's so true. And for you or your listeners who travel and think about other countries that you've gone to, the McDonald's in Europe has had a kiosk forever, right? Yeah. And
thank God. I love eating McDonald's in Europe.
It's only now that in the US, we're starting to eat kiosks in our fast food restaurants, probably accelerated by COVID, and trying to have, a touch-free, a social distancing version of ordering, but also just because once a consumer gets used to ordering on their phone, they get used to ordering on the web, then why wouldn't they want to order in the same way once they come into your store? So yes, certainly you're starting to see digitization there. You're also starting, as you said, to see digitization in the order and pay for sit-down restaurants. And so you might have something like a tablet where you can, add a drink instead of waiting for a server to come to you and ask you if you'd like one, or bring the handheld to you to pay your bill so you can process that transaction all right there, rather than having to give them your card, watch them walk off to it with it. Who knows where they're going? Who knows when they'll come back? Everything's just getting much more seamless and frictionless and easy as digital gets woven into these restaurants. And what and
don't forget for Blaine, they have the backlit menus that you can increase the size of the font. Yeah. So you can order without your phone and your glasses. I go to dinner with Blaine every time I can. So.
As long as he's paying, right? That's the important thing.
He pays.
The other side of
he's so generous. I'm trying to teach him to receive. He will not let me pick up a check. So
there you go.
He's one of the few friends I have that won't. So that evens itself out.
Good friend to have. Good friend to have.
The digital restaurant also goes beyond that, though, right? It also goes in behind the kind of area where customers are. So nowadays, you're finding restaurant workers using their phone to confirm when they're starting a shift or when they're actually going to complete a certain task. So the digitization happens way beyond just the ordering interface and being able to have things delivered. So I think really now we're just seeing that being something that everyone is very excited about. And you talk about the new labor force coming in. They expect to be able to have an engagement with restaurant employers that give them that opportunity.
Yeah, that was, there was two questions I was going to ask. That was one of them. Just how are the restaurant owners actually managing, digitally, scheduling and that thing, because you've got different shifts and all that stuff. The other question, and this, I'm going to bring our previous guest in on pricing. value-based pricing, because we're looking at a perturbation or a disruption in this space. In your book, do you address, or in your research, are you actually looking at right pricing for the ways that these restaurants are now going to market, rather than just having a bespoke, fixed price menu?
This is a very timely question, Blaine. Yesterday, I told the world that I'm a co-founder and COO of a company called Juicer Pricing, and we are bringing dynamic pricing to restaurants, much in the same way as we're used to seeing for hotels and airlines. And the guys I've founded the company with have gone and done it in those industries. And so it's a very, very timely question, because for us, we see the opportunity, especially with off-premise, where the customer is a little bit more price agnostic. We're seeing a level of price dynamism happen from the marketplaces like DoorDash and Uber Eats, where you might pay a different delivery fee depending on the time when you're ordering. But that hasn't, hindered their interest in still having that convenience. But the thing is, that value is going to the marketplace. The restaurant still isn't necessarily getting any share of the pie, if you will.
Right.
And so now, can you imagine a world where at 7 p.m. and on a Friday night, maybe you charge an extra 50 cents for that pizza? And maybe at 4 p.m. on a Sunday afternoon, you actually charge 50 cents less to be able to take advantage of spare capacity. This is a really exciting space. We're at the very early innings on this one, but we're working already with a number of different restaurant chains across the US and further afield to really explore how this is going to drive their top line sales, but also their bottom line margin.
Yeah, you guys need to pick up a book. It's called The Price Whisperer: Holistic Approach to Pricing Power.
I've already took a note. I was listening and I was like, you guys have paired us together well.
Yeah, the universe does that for us. I always give credit to our production team. I'm amazed the synergy that we have between our guests and all the shows. I'm like, how do these guys do that? They just trust the universe. To that end, the data side is the last point I want to go over. As indicative of your new business, the amount of information and AI learning that can be had in order to make these decisions, just like an Uber, as far as the timing of in the pricing of. But I also think within the context of margins, one of the things I know in the restaurant business that is missed by your traditional family-owned restaurant, and I see it all the way because I have a math mind, they're missing out on the margins, in pushing certain products or ways that you get to the price conscious of, pushing things that have lower margins because it's their favorite dish to cook, instead of, a nice alcoholic beverage for $32 that can then create great value in a meal by packaging, which the fast food restaurants do extremely well at with their value menus. How does the data side of it now, within the context of a digital restaurant, utilizing AI to not only change the price, but to maximize the order in market?
Well, there is so much more data than there used to be, both in terms of visibility. The technology just brings visibility to things that didn't exist before, but also in terms of complexity. So whereas a restaurant historically would have had a single channel, right, dine in, and they would have had whatever menu items they had, probably not customizable or personalizable in any way. And then they would have peanut butter spread the labor cost over every single item and then would have called it a day, right? And now you've got different channels that have different prices. Potentially, you'll have different prices at different times, or maybe different customers will have different prices. And the most amazing thing that comes with all this change is that you now have data on individual guests. So the people coming in the doors used to be, frankly, anonymous, right? So you had to do everything at this sort of global average level. But now you can tie specific behavior to a specific person. And you can say, oh, when we run a promotion like this, these people come in and they buy these things. And you're able to do a much more specific ROI on that promotional activity because you know what the outcome is, rather than at the average level, you know it at the specific segment.
The scary thing is they'll be like, oh my gosh, Blaine loves the meatball sandwich. And they see Blaine come in the door and boom, it doubles his own menu. His wife's like, why is your meatball sandwich so much more on your menu than mine?
I don't think it'll be that bad. I hope that we won't have
So you
restaurants.
never know. You never know. At least on the outside of it, you might be able to pull that
will
off.
be the
Anyway,
time when you'll get to pay, David. That'll be the time when you get to pay. You see? 'Cause
yeah,
that was-
exactly. And I'll be happy.
That's when you get to pay.
And I'll be happy to. There's no one I'd rather buy a meal for than Blaine Bartlett. And just so excited about the journey you're on, the book that you're delivering the digital restaurant. It is changing one of the most and best experiences that we have. Food means a lot to people in more than just nourishment. It's in that relationship culture and dining especially. So you guys are improving a major aspect of our lives. Meredith, Carl, thank you for joining us. Come back and keep us updated on all of the great progress that you're making.
Thanks so much.
Good stuff.
Thank you.
Good to meet both of you.
We got 2 books to buy now, Delivering the Digital Restaurant,
Yeah,
especially if you're in the business.
Yeah,
right.
I'm getting that book for one of my clients.
I got a special guest coming on now.
Yeah, I
This
wondered
guy-
if this was going to be something that would ring your bell here.
Yeah, well, he became a good friend of mine, and every time I'm with him, every time I see him, it's like being with Napoleon Hill. This guy knows so much, and I pride myself on having a lot of interviews and learning from a lot of people. But I think last I spoke, as we had a meal together, David Siegel, who's the CEO of Meetup, he's talking about 60 million subscribers with a common frequency that meet up. And he wrote a book called Decide and Conquer. And of course, he has his podcast called Keep Connected, which is aligned with Meeting Up. But I want to talk about this sucker right here.
Hold that up again, David.
Yeah, Decide and
First of all,
Conquer.
David, you can pay for a meal for me at any time. I'm happy to have you pay for a meal. In fact, you did so a couple of weeks ago. So I'll take your pay for it any time. Just so you know.
Anytime you show up to a meal, I will pay for it because I learned so much more than a good piece of chicken costs. So anyway, David, you are around so many people and so many critical business and personal issues just from your day-to-day activity with your business. And you've learned more about what the challenges are and how to address those challenges. When I think of you, I always say the biggest waste of time is between problems and solutions, right? That interval of time is the biggest waste of time. Yeah. And I see Decide and Conquer as at least reducing, if not dissipating, and even dissolving that waste of time. Give me an idea of how Decide and Conquer is set up in order to effectuate this idea of making big decisions, coming up with a solution quickly so we don't waste time.
Okay. So, I've always been obsessed with decision making. And the reason for the obsession is because I know so many people that just don't realize that, like, by not making a decision, you are making a decision. Yeah. And it's like a lifelong frustration of mine that people are like, I just can't decide. I'm going to give it some more time. No. You actually decided. You're giving it more time. And that means you're probably going to lose out on the opportunity. Teddy Roosevelt actually said this great quote, which is, best decisions are great decisions. The next best decisions are bad decisions. And the worst decisions are no decision. And it's just like, how many people do we know that are just stuck in like this analysis paralysis? They just can't get out of their way. They're looking for perfection and then end up like being constantly in a state of like frustration and stress because they just can't make a decision. So I've been obsessed with it always. And then what happened was I didn't want to write like a boring business book about like decision making because there's a million of those boring business books out there.
Like
no,
game decision making.
Awesome. Those are far from boring. No, far from it. Your book is freaking like an amazing story, Dave. I loved it because it's storytelling. Your books are storytelling, but it didn't have like you had freaking insane stories to tell of just like roller coasters, like up to the mountain peaks and down to the depths. So like your freaking stories were amazing, and the best books are storytelling. So like I didn't have a story, so I had the book in my head, but I didn't have a story. But then we got Meetup was acquired by WeWork. Adam Newman comes knocking on the door, and WeWork was just such a crazy cluster F and such insane experiences that the book kind of wrote itself because I could come up with so many examples of what kind of not to do. As part of like an organization that was worth $47 billion and it's worth, $4 billion today. So there's a bunch of principles around decision making that I have in the book, Decide and Conquer. And, you know, one of them is of course, be speedy. And I talk a lot about the idea of like a minimum viable decision. Like people talk about MVP, minimum viable products. Like, what do you need to do to make a decision quickly? Because the goal of life and business probably is learning. Learning is the goal. Mm-hmm. And you can't freaking learn unless you get out there and do the thing, unless you see what happens. Just like lean startup methodology of like minimum viable product, get your product out there, learn, minimum viable decision, get your decision out there, learn from the decision, and then ultimately, you know, pivot, change. Most decisions are not, and I'll shut up finally, don't worry. Most decisions are not like trapdoor decisions. You make the decision, God, your life has changed forever. That's it. It's like, no, it doesn't work that way. Most decisions are not trapdoor. You could pivot, you could change. Like, you know, you have a kid. That's a trapdoor decision. You get married. It's not even a trapdoor decision, right? I mean,
for me, it is. I'm glad of it.
For me, it is too. 23 years. I know you have an amazing marriage and three amazing kids, right, Dave?
Four, 3 girls, 1 boy.
Sorry.
Everyone forgets Miles.
Amazing though, right?
Nobody forgets Miles.
Anyway, that's the genesis of the book, and there's a bunch of principles in there. I could go through a couple of them if it's worthwhile, or something else, or talk about
Blaine will find the root of all evil in this. What's going on, Blaine?
Oh, I mean, it's not the root of all evil. It's the source of the. Yeah, it's the kernel of the source code here. You mentioned Napoleon Hill right at the very beginning when David came on. And you know, our old late departed friend Bob Proctor used to talk a lot about Andrew Carnegie and Napoleon Hill's relationship, and how I'm going to make you an offer. Yeah, I'm going to give you 30. Yeah, you need to decide. Let me know what you're going to do. Started the stopwatch. And 30 seconds later, Carnegie had made, Napoleon Hill had made the decision. But it was the decision. It was the decision that got made. And that's where everything starts. And my dog just made a decision to notice a deer and do something about that. So I'm gonna mute out here while I yell at the dog. There is a question here. Hold on.
All right, we'll get the question to Dave while he answers that.
That's a rough question, but I'm bummed.
Well, talk about, you talk about different challenges that leaders face. What is it that paralyzed? Oh, Blaine's back. Go ahead.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, David, I love how this works. What paralyzes people from making these rapid, not rapid in the sense of throwaway decisions, but what
the MBD, man, the MBD.
Okay. What paralyzes people is the way in which people integrate when they make mistakes. Too often someone makes a mistake and they see themselves a mistake. They fail and they see themselves as a failure. They internalize the experiences and say that the thing that just happened is them. And because of that, because the consequence of someone calling themselves a failure and thinking that they're a failure is so significant, and because so many people have imposter syndrome, etc., it results in people not wanting to take responsibility. And oh, by the way, if you don't make a decision and it just ends up that the universe ends up not giving you the opportunity anymore, ooh, I can't blame myself for that anymore. That's not my fault. If you make a bad decision, I screwed up, therefore I'm a screw up. That's the problem. Yeah,
the linkage between responsibility and blame is imaginary, but it's almost ubiquitous. Responsibility and blame do not belong together. And the other piece, I remember a conversation a long time ago when I was in Japan. I spent almost 40 years there. Honda Soichiro was asked, the secret of his success, and Honda-san was unique. I mean, he was really a fascinating character in Japanese culture. What's the secret of your success? And he said, I made as many mistakes as I could, as fast as I could.
Beautiful.
And so decision, rapid iteration. And
Dave, one of the things that I work on alongside with this, and it's value-based, is I think another thing besides, the identification with failure is prioritization. There's a lot of work value-wise that has to go in for someone. And I will pride myself on being a very quick decision maker. I think my team who's around me a lot will say, it's amazing when you get to these super successful people, which I'm blessed to be around, like you and Blaine, that how quickly not only are you making decisions, but you are constantly just everything's so fast. The conversation's fast. And the prioritization is a key component, in my opinion, of making decisions. That if you're clear on your values, then it's easy to say, this is where it fits in.
1,000%. If you need to anchor your decisions, and if you have your decision anchors, and you know your company values or your personal values, then you're not like stumbling around. Is this important? Is that important? You know, hey, number one, family is most important. Okay, that helps. Number two, my friends or whatever it is, and hopefully, money is at the, not too high on that list. It's somewhere, hopefully towards the bottom. But the moment that you are not able to prioritize and you just think that everything is important, nothing can be important. And then you're just kind of awash in pro cons lists that go nowhere.
Yeah. That's interesting because in the Mindset Mastermind, spend a year answering this question. The students that are in that program with me, I pose this question right up front. How do you know what to do when you don't know what to do? That's what we're going to be looking at here over the course of this next 12 months. How do you know what to do when you don't know what to do? Because it's prioritization, decision, prioritization.
Oh, can I answer that one? Can I just give my opinion on it if you don't mind?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why you're here, by the way.
What's that, Dave?
That's why we have you here.
Okay. What do you know? I don't know. Maybe you have me there, because of my cool shirt.
No, it's your good looks.
Yeah, I get that. Never. So what do you know to when you don't want to? My big thing is find a mentor, find someone that you can trust that's been there, done that. Don't try to figure it out yourself, like how to do what to do. Yep. Talk to people who have been in that similar situation, but not just one, because one's not enough. Because you talk to one, and that person, that experience is never going to be like yours, and they're going to give you advice potentially that's totally dissimilar that you need. But if you talk to like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different people that have been in similar, then there's going to be a theme that emerges, and then that's how you figure it out. Don't just trust one person. It's the biggest mistake people can make.
It's so smart. I always say you get pattern. You get clues with then patterns, and then you can make a choice when you ask for help from people who sit in the situation you want to be in. I'm going to give it another turn. All of us are faith-based people in different ways and in different means. In the process of making a decision, people make a decision, in my opinion, in 2 different realms. One is fear, and the other is faith. I truly am a faithful person where I believe there's something bigger than me that loves me more than my mom. So I'm being protected and promoted. Therefore, I'm okay testing and going. I'm okay with the MVD, the minimum viable decision. I'm fine with it because I know I'm being protected and promoted, especially the faster I find the lesson in whatever pain, setback, or failure occurs from the MVD. How has faith and fear relate to the your decision-making philosophy?
Wow, what a good question. Okay. Faith. So I happen to be Orthodox Jewish. I believe in God. I know, it's funny. People say like the universe. You could say God. It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
You're not going to be struck down because you say the word God. So anyway,
No,
the universe,
it's
God,
just bad for the digital community out there. Like
exactly.
you don't want to alienate the people.
Okay. God,
I always say, what God do you? Everyone believes in God. It's what God do you believe in? I used to believe in money as a God, and my mom would get all over, right?
Nice,
but
nice. That's the idol worship, right? So, and some people think social media is like idol worship,
right?
Anyway,
Faith and fear.
For me, I think if you believe that, and I do, that every person on this world, not just me, not just all the 3 of us, but every person who are successful, quote unquote, every person in this world, the person who is struggling, the homeless person out there, every person in this world was put on the world by God in order to serve some greater purpose to help others. Then the moment you believe that, the more comfort it gives you, because if something bad happens, then in my mind, it's like, I'm trying my hardest, but this bad thing could have been the greatest thing in the world. And I just have no idea. And how often do all 3 of us have had happen in life that like the thing that we were like, oh my God, this is a terrible thing that could have happened. I got like fired from Investopedia when I was the CEO of it. But if that didn't happen, then I wouldn't have become the CEO of Meetup. So like, hey, what a dream come true. So like all these things that are bad are good, and sometimes good are bad. And if you believe that there's someone out there or the universe out there that's looking to help and support you in achieving what your life goals and missions are, then, it just got to roll with the punches much easier. Don't take yourself too seriously. Everyone takes themselves so damn seriously. It's terrible.
Yeah. Rule number 6 from Xander's, right? Do not take yourself.
Exactly.
And if you want to know, by the way, in case David didn't know, rules 1 through 5 are go to rule number 6. So it makes it really
they are. Yeah.
It's so good.
He's great.
David Siegel, man, you got to come back and visit me more often. If you have not read and you haven't bought and you haven't checked out Decide and Conquer, it will change your life. The faster you make those minimum viable decisions, the faster you'll learn. I'm looking for fast learners. That's all I hire. And I'm looking for people that do not identify with the mistake, but they identify with the lesson that they've learned, expanding, growing, and accelerating. Just like Meetup, by the way, who is a godsend for me. What a great organization, what a great brand, and what a great friend you become of mine. I'm happy to buy you a meal anytime, anywhere, as long as you keep educating me. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Great meeting you. Okay, meeting you, and seeing you again, Dave. Take care.
You got it. We'll do more.
David.
Thank you. He's amazing. The energy of these people, right? Like, you just know success breeds it. All right, we got a Homer coming on next. That's right. He's not from where we're from, but he's Jeff Homer, and the founder of Ensemble Music Schools, ensemblemusicschools.com. And this business has grown. You're talking about kind of a mom and shop business, and you talk about, Blaine, we talk about aggregate effect or exponential growth. Jeff, you could be said to be an overnight success, but what's the real story behind, the growth of your extraordinary business?
Yeah, happy accidents, I think, would be the starting place. People are going to feel like this is staged. I'm a big Meetup fan. I'm a user of the platform, so it's fun to hear that interview before I went on. But yeah, look, I mean, I came into this, from a different, sort of in a very accidental way, where I was doing the large cap investing, kind of traditional finance path, right? I was a Harvard undergrad. Out of school, I worked at several multi-billion-dollar investment firms, and spending my days at mom and pop music schools was not something that I saw myself doing. But it's interesting because it's something that I think a lot more. It's now somewhat fashionable if you're a Harvard or Stanford MBA to go out and buy a business and sort of be an entrepreneur through acquisition, as opposed to through trying to start a business from kind of doing the 0 to 1 thing. And I think. With all the difficulty in the entrepreneurial journey of getting that start, the ability to acquire a business that, maybe has a great product, but has a lot of, opportunity for improvement behind the scenes has been a really fun journey. And I think a lot of people are starting to pursue that. Yeah.
Now, you kind of downplayed this a little bit, Harvard graduate. You were actually magna cum laude graduate.
Who wrote that? Who told you?
Who did that? Who said that?
Who's airing my business on this?
With a degree
in internet, economics. It's terrifying.
Yeah. But you now run an organization that is the largest employer of music teachers in the country. Mm-hmm. How do you go from managing capital asset with an economic background to now? I'm fascinated by this journey. I truly am.
Sure. So the truth is, I in 2018 I moved from New York City to Denver. It was a big upgrade in my quality of life. It's a place that I really enjoy spending time and being outdoors and all that kind of stuff. And I took a great job working in a family office, and it was a place I thought I was going to see myself for a long time. But the expectations weren't the same as working on Wall Street in terms of being at my desk night and day. And I had some time and felt like I needed some, I guess I don't have enough hobbies because I felt like I needed some kind of a side project. And so I went out looking for a small business to buy. I thought it'd be fun to have a community-based small business where I could see an impact that wasn't moving hundreds of millions on a spreadsheet, that has a degree of unreality or abstraction from the real world. And I ended up meeting a woman who owned a music school, and she was the quintessential music teacher, right? She'd gone to Juilliard. She had this amazing New York City classical singing career. She was a big deal, but she was also not a business person. She was a pedagogue, right? And so she came at it from a teaching perspective and from a music perspective. And so here's something I think you see often in business. You have a small little company where the core idea is very viable and there's no infrastructure around it, right? Whether it's great service, great product, there's no infrastructure built around it. And that was kind of where it clicked for me, is like, this is actually a pretty good business. You know, I had the same piano teacher when I was a kid for like 10 years. This is a high lifetime value, sticky customer, recurring revenue relationship, like lots of things that we like in a business model, and kind of virgin territory in terms of doing even the basics. Like, you know, they were on pen and paper schedules and, you know, word of mouth marketing. And there were just lots of things I could see, you know, to sort of help behind the scenes to improve the business side of the small business. But it was also just a great product and a fun place to spend time. Like, it was just, you know, I don't know if you can hear in the background, I'm at one of our schools now. There's some energy floating out of the practice rooms, and like, it's a great place to spend time. And compared to the sterile world of high finance, like, it was very energizing to jump in.
You know, yeah. Let me real quick. The contrast here, the 24/7, you know, room, you know, in a sterile financial environment. I use your words here. Having space to let the soul of who you are actually go on a search for something that brings it alive.
Sure.
I mean, yeah, David and I, when we, you know, this version of Office Hours used to be called the Soul of Business, you know, the Soul of Business episode of Office Hours. You're talking about, and you reference this, you know, that small little business. Yeah. And most small businesses start off with this kernel of an idea that the soul has quickened. And now, and I say soul, not religiously, but this force that wants to create something, that wants to, you know, bring it out. Bringing what you brought to this is that's the magic piece, is being able to make it viable. So it becomes a mission with a business that you know, kind of carries it forward.
Yeah.
So,
I think a lot of musicians in particular think that it's sort of antithetical to their mission to run a profitable business. And
that's
it's
where
not,
I was going to go. Yeah,
in order to pay your teachers, in order to support, you know, your community, you have to make a profit. And you know, you don't have to make it hand over fist, but you need to make a margin. You need to pay yourself for your time, and that's a touchy idea in this industry still.
Well, the idea of you don't have to make it hand over fist. You have to make a profit, but it doesn't have to be hand over fist. When making it hand over fist comes into play here, now you've got a business with a mission as an afterthought.
Yeah.
And that's a play that you don't want to get into.
Sure.
David?
Yeah, no. It's interesting because my younger brother graduated magna cum laude as well from Harvard. And I've analyzed the pressure that he was under from high school to Harvard to graduate school. And he's a biochem major, not an economics major. And
that's way harder. All the
it depends on if you have a photographic memory or not, right? So, but what's interesting is there's duality of pressure and freedom from, you know, being what people perceive you to be. You know, when you're magna cum laude from Harvard, you're expected to go to Bain. You know, you're expected to make millions of dollars for you and others, and sit in front of spreadsheets and, you know, portray this stereotype of Wall Street. And but on the other side, when you make a decision, my brother ended up being a rabbi, so he's a biochem major, religious studies. He graduated in 3 years, religious studies master's, and a PhD in social ethics, and worked for President Clinton, but became a rabbi in the end. Les Wexner gave him a fellowship, and I analyzed, while I was, you know, the only one to step outside of doctor, lawyer, or failure, to then see him follow footstep and see the difference for me making a decision where everyone had already perceived his future as, you know, saving and curing cancer.
Yeah.
But I also saw, because of the credibility of his academic achievements, that he had also some leniency, as a lot of Harvard dropouts do, or Stanford people who do crazy things and end up changing the world. I would love to get, as the last question, your insight on where you felt the pressure from, you know, friends, parents, relatives, and then two, because I think it's interesting for entrepreneurs to know that everyone, no matter if you're the top of your class at Harvard or you never went to high school, everyone feels different pressures in different way, but there's also a freedom that is inclusive, determined upon your own background and your experience.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I mean, I think I felt it most from myself, right? I mean, I was raised in a household that was very much sort of, you know, to the best of your abilities. And as a kid, I had a lot of abilities, right? And so there were high expectations of what I was doing, and sort of I was on the path, right? I was doing well in high school. I was going to Harvard. I was working for Bain Capital. Like, there was no criticism of any of those decisions. And then you get to a point where life starts branching in front of you, right? And like, there aren't obvious choices. And when I tell people that I left finance to go, run a couple of music schools, now in retrospect that we have a little bit of achievement, it sounds easier. But, when we had 3 schools and we weren't making money, it was a totally different thing to say, yeah, I left it all behind and this is what I'm doing. And people are like, oh, that sounds great. I'm sure you'll do well. Not really believing it. But I think one of the really positive things that's happening is it is actually become like this community that sprung up around entrepreneurship through acquisition. That it really started at the Stanford Business School, but it's starting to grow, and it's there's enough empirical data now that the model works, and that you can be 26 years old and go buy a business and just be kind of smart and figure it out, and that's enough. And so there's empirical studies that have been done about the returns of people that went out, raised money to buy a business, and sort of raised a search fund or something of that nature. And so there's now like a small amount of credibility that's built up where now people, I think, do have a license to say, yeah, I am going to go, search for a business to buy. And there's a recognition that that's a reasonable career path for a Harvard or Stanford MBA, or for anybody. It's a great career track for returning veterans, and like lots of folks that for whom business ownership is a great is a pathway that makes sense. But I think it has been destigmatized a little bit. But I felt all the pressure sort of on the inside from feeling like because it's a blessing and a curse to have a really accomplished friend group, right? In order to hang with them, like, you got to say you're doing cool stuff. And I definitely went off the beaten path, and I had some wilderness years there. But I think it's
try joining the Transformational Leadership Council with Blaine Bartlett, Cynthia Kersey, Mary Morrissey, Jack Canfield, Bob Proctor, John Asseroff, David. Oh my gosh, the list goes on. And then Blaine's like, hey, I'm going to give you an honor. I'm going to let you join us. And I'm thinking at first, this is super cool. It's like getting into Harvard in the spiritual world. And then you realize, holy crap, like, this is a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
These people are super wise. Anyway, you are super wise, and you are, to me, just an inspiration to all entrepreneurs of, how we can utilize our intention to transform what is apparent, small business into what can have a great impact across our country. Congratulations, Jeff. I told you we were bringing in the Homer, and he hit one out of the park. Jeff Homer, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for the time. Appreciate it, guys.
Good to
Great
meet
job.
you. Great job.
Congrats.
Boy,
that's awesome.
What a lineup.
Yeah, man. I just thought that was so interesting. Like, I love entrepreneurs come from everywhere, right?
Yeah.
They're moms who get out of their car and like, why do I have to keep putting on and off the jacket in this car seat, to, magna cum laudes at Harvard and dropouts of high schoolers, homeless guys. That's what, for me, is America. It's everyone has an opportunity to be an entrepreneur. Yeah. And through my travels, people can say what they want about our country. There is no other country in the world that, no matter what your background is, that you have opportunities, options, and touches of favor like we have in America. And so I just want to bring that out as my takeaway, because, wow, we got 4 big hitters here. Our grand slam was at the end. His name's actually Homer, so it fit perfectly. He hit a homer. But I just want to say, if this isn't a testament to how great our country is and why we all should value and appreciate the differences that we all have, instead of trying to appreciate how we're all the same, we need to focus in on appreciating our differences. Yep. That somebody, like Pear, Jeff, Carl, Meredith, and of course David, all superpreneurs, none of them are even close to the same. But yet we can appreciate their differences to create the greatest country that's ever been created. What was your takeaway, Blaine?
I'm going to just put it in the catch-all of one word: decisions. Decisions. Pear talked about the decision landscape in setting prices, determining what's the right price. Carl and Meredith, just in terms of dynamic pricing, the digitization of what decisions need to be made here to actually be viable in a perturbed marketplace. David, certainly with both his meetup stuff, but more importantly, the minimum viable decision. Make the decision, just do it. And then Jeff, decision in service of I'm in Wall Street. I'm kicking it. It doesn't feel right. I need space. So a decision to give my soul the honor of being listened to. That and that's the thread that runs through all of this for me and it goes right back to what you were talking about. This is an incredible country with unbelievable opportunities for people to make decisions that can lead to places they've only dreamed of. But it starts with the dream and then the decision to act on that dream. So that's my takeaway.
Another great takeaway, unbelievable. My mentor in the solar business. We can put that logo up whenever you want. It's office hours here with the solar business. Learn.blainebartlett.com/LMM. Join one of the greatest masterminds with Blaine Bartlett. Is changed not only my life, but the employees and friends and family and associates that have joined as well. An incredible quantitative difference. Change the way you look at things. The things you look at change. Thank you, my friend. We'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you for joining me. He is amazing. All right, everyone. Tomorrow marks the 5th year anniversary of the Playbook. If you haven't checked out, we have 1,200 episodes of the Playbook. It's my podcast. If you want to download it and review it, I will send you a gift, sign it, and ship it to you. We're looking for more and more people to celebrate 5 years. I'm one of those guys that said 5 years ago, there's too many podcasts. I didn't want to do one. And then a guy named Gary Vaynerchuk said, you got to do it. And I listened, I made a decision, and I acted upon it. And here we are, over 1,200 episodes later, one of the top podcasts in the world. And I'm blessed to share 5 years of doing those every single day. And I'm appreciative for everyone that has helped me. I want to thank Matt, who's back there as well. Thank you, everyone. Remember, be more interested than interesting. Be kind to your future self. Do good deeds. We'll see you tomorrow for my 5th anniversary. Thanks so much.